Hello world, today I'm going to show you how to create a persistent header on a table inside of a web page using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's going to look like this whenever the user scrolls down the page. Notice how the header is staying on the screen as we continue to scroll down, and it disappears as we come to the end of the table. Alright, let's get to it. Start out with the necessary HTML. In our header we're going to have to call a couple of JavaScripts here. This first one here is going to be the jQuery library that we're going to get from Google. I highly recommend using Google's jQuery library because a lot of other web pages already call this in their web pages, and it will frequently be cached in the user's browser, so they don't even have to download it, and it'll already be there on their computers, and they'll be able to load your page quicker. The second thing we're going to have to do is call our own JavaScript. In this case, it's going to be stored in the same directory as our HTML file, and we're calling it javascript.js in this case. You can call it whatever you want. Alright, and further down the page here, our table is going to have a CSS class of header stays. And then our head, let's see, our first row here in the head is going to have our header, CSS class of header. And those are the only two classes that are really necessary for us to put inside the HTML. And as far as the body, just put a bunch of data in here, individual rows, individual cells in the row, etc., etc., etc. Alright. And the CSS, we only need to define two classes in our CSS to make this work. First one here, CSS header properties, which, if you recall, it was not called inside the HTML page itself. It's going to be created with our JavaScript. We'll get to that. In this class, it's going to have a visibility of hidden. Its position is going to be fixed, and we're going to call its top 0. Set it at 0. And then our header class. This one we did define. This is going to be in our head. This is what's going to stay on the page. Background, we chose light blue here. It doesn't matter what color you pick. You can put a picture here if you want, but the background must be opaque for this to work. It cannot be transparent. If it is transparent, you're going to see the contents of the table as it scrolls past our persistent header. Text align, I kind of think it looks nice if it's aligned to the left. This really isn't necessary to make it work. I just do that to make it look pretty. Alright, let's get to our JavaScript here. First thing we're going to do, we're going to define an anonymous function that is going to run as soon as the JavaScript file is called by the web browser. We only have to define one variable here to display this fixed header, and then for each of these instances of the CSS class header stays that appear in our HTML file, we're going to call this other anonymous function here. Display this fixed header. Our variable is going to be equal to this instance of the header that the page is currently dealing with right now. And then this part right here, this is where we create that class that we didn't put into our HTML yet. This is going to put it inside the web page. And then down here, last thing we're calling in our anonymous function is just an event listener. Whenever the user scrolls on the web page, it's going to call this function here, which we define down here. Update table headers. And for each instance of this CSS class, header stays that was in the table, right? Each instance of that, we're going to call another anonymous function. And we had to define a few variables here. Which element we're dealing with, its relative position, the position of the cursor as we're scrolling on the page, and also our CSS properties here that we are creating. Basically, this if statement here is just what this comment says. If the view in the window is below the header, we're going to display it, right? And we're just going to change the visibility of that class that the JavaScript is going to put inside the HTML file. Its visibility is visible if we're right there where it needs to be, and once we scroll off the page, it's going to be hidden. And of course, don't forget to close off your functions. Well, that's all there is to it. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching.